the most influential people, doctors, life-saving doctors, they can't come home for dinner because they're trading their time for their money. Freedom, time freedom is just so important. And it's something that we don't think about. It's not taught. People, your jobs don't want you to think about time freedom. They want you to think you got to work. And so that's why we're here.
There is a new American dream. One that doesn't involve working till you're 65 before you start enjoying life. If you're someone looking for ways to regain control over your time and check off that bucket list now, you're in the right place. We share tips from experts on investing, personal finance, and mindset so that you can finally have the freedom to work less and live more. This is the Freedom Investing Podcast with your host, Kris Toribio.
What's going on, everyone? This is Kris Toribio here, the host of the Freedom Investing Podcast and managing partner of freedominvesting.com. I am so happy you're here to join us for our very first episode. And for everyone tuning in, welcome to the show. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button so that way you can stay up to date with our latest episodes. You know, the goal for this podcast is really to inspire, motivate, and educate busy individuals who are looking to free up their time in their lives by sharing investment strategies and time management strategies that have worked for others. So with that being said, let's move on to our first guest. We have our amazing team here at freedominvesting.com to introduce ourselves and share with you a little bit about who we are, where we came from, and why we decided to venture down this path towards early financial independence, as well as achieving time freedom. So today, I'd like to introduce you to our Director of Acquisitions, Julian Trulana, our Head of Asset Management, April Trulana, as well as my amazing wife, business partner, and our Director of Marketing, Angela Toribio. Guys, welcome to the show. Before we dive into it, give us a quick 2-minute rundown of who you are, your background, and where you are in your journey towards achieving time freedom. And Julian, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I've been a mechanic for 14 years now. Getting out of high school, I realized that I didn't want to follow the traditional path and go through like a 4-year college. Fast forward to today, I'm passionate about analyzing real estate investments and continuing to hone my underwriting skills through different educational programs.
Yeah, and you are really crushing it, man. I mean, we're so thankful to have you. He is like our underwriting and our numbers guru of our team and really responsible for a lot of the due diligence that we do in all of our deals. April, what's up? What about you? What you got going on here?
Thanks for having us as your first guest, Kris.
Absolutely.
So again, I'm April. I've been a nurse practitioner for about 5 years now, and then I was a nurse for 7 years before that. My husband and I started real estate investing in 2019 when we decided to turn our single family home into a rental and move into a 3-flat to house hack it. So in 2021, we ended up buying another 3-flat, which we're currently rehabbing. And we're currently transitioning into apartment syndications and senior housing to help other busy professionals take part in the benefits of real estate investing.
I love it. And for those of our listeners who don't know what house hacking is, can you kind of just really quickly define that?
So house hacking is when you buy a multi-unit building, you move into one unit, and you have your tenants help you pay for the mortgage. So it basically frees up that living expense that you have, which is usually your biggest expense. Absolutely.
You know, I read this book by Scott Trench called Set for Life, and it's a Bigger Pockets book. He's the podcast host of Bigger Pockets Money. But really what they were saying was that if you want to set yourself up for a really strong foundation, and they took a look at people's budgets, the most expensive part of their budget really was housing. And so house hacking really allows you to set forth the foundation for a strong financial future, because by living in one unit, renting out the other two, you are subsidizing your housing expense, which is your greatest cost and the greatest expense in your budget. So that frees up more income that you're generating to put towards your investments.
Absolutely. It's mind-blowing that not a lot of people know this. Not a lot of younger people know this, that you can get rid of your biggest expense monthly, rent or mortgage.
Absolutely. And honey, what's going on? Tell everybody about who it is that you are.
Actually, a new Chicago realtor, but going back to what I got my degree in was therapeutic recreation. And I've worked with older adults for approximately 6 years. And during this time, working as the resident lifestyles director, my husband, Kris, and I acquired our first house hack, which was a 2-unit building with a additional in-law unit right before the pandemic in 2020.
Yes, we closed on our first house hack. And to put things into context, I was still in the middle of grad school. I was still finishing up the last year of anesthesia school at the time. So I didn't have a job. I was a full-time student. Luckily enough, we were able to qualify for that property just with Angela's income alone. But we closed on that property in January of 2020. And we had no idea what was yet to come for us and what that meant for us the next following, 1 to 2 years. Mm-hmm. For you, how did this feel at the time?
Scared, very uneasy during this time, just not knowing how this pandemic was going to affect the housing market. But we kept going with our value add construction. Fast forward to a year later, we were able to cash out nearly all of our invested capital and use that for our next deal in 2021, which was the purchase of our 4 flat. And I'm so thankful for this experience that we've had, despite the circumstances that we had to go through.
Yeah, at some point, there's only so many books, there's only so many articles and things that you can read. At some point or another, you just have to take action. And that's an ongoing theme that we're finding, not only with real estate investors, but entrepreneurs alike. There's no way to know exactly what's going to happen when you take action, but sometimes you just have to learn and feel confident in yourself that you're going to be able to handle the situation just fine. Mm-hmm. All right. So at this point, what was going on, Angela? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
At this point, I was learning a lot about real estate. There's so many terms in real estate you have to know. But I was looking forward to, growing our portfolio and scaling larger. So in turn, I was given a great opportunity at work. My transition as the assistant director for our 164 unit senior living community, which I learned so much from. But one thing that actually stuck out to me, besides learning more about the property management aspect, was the idea of how time is so limited. I know a lot of people can relate to this as well. Once time is spent, you can never get it back. And working with the senior population, I hear it too often. Someone retires at the age of 65 years old, and then they experience a life-changing condition that limits them from enjoying the rest of their lives. And as listeners, we want to help you by sharing investment strategies and allowing you to obtain that time freedom that you guys have always wanted and that we're attaining.
I think if there's any sort of thing that unites us as a group is that we all are actively investing, right? And investing in real estate specifically. April, can you kind of go a little bit deeper into why investing and why real estate to begin with?
As a group, we talk about this constantly. Why are we trying to invest in real estate? And that's because we don't want to be dependent on just one job, one stream of income. We work so hard as individuals for the better part of our life to ensure that our families don't endure hardships. And if we don't take the steps to protect our wealth, we're doing ourselves a disservice. We realized the power of real estate investing when the pandemic hit, just like you guys. The income from our rental properties really provided us with a security that if one of us lost our jobs, that we would still be financially stable. And we realized the majority of the United States was vulnerable and that they were reliant on that one source of income. If you are unable to trade your time for money, the money stops. And that's a situation no one ever wants to be in.
Yeah, that was a huge realization for me as well. I kind of joke around that I'm a professional student because, I've been in school for the greater half of my life. I went through the whole traditional route of formal education, 2 bachelor's degrees, and then went on to obtain my doctorate degree and graduate in 2020, ultimately with the goal thinking that at the end of all of this, I'm going to end up with a stable job that pays well and a good career with good benefits. And by the time I'm 65, I'll be able to have a good retirement. And that's the way the American dream is, right? Mm-hmm. And ultimately, what ended up happening is that I realized that okay, if something happens to me at any given point between now and the time I'm 65 and I'm no longer able to work, all these years of education would literally have gone down the drain. Right? I wouldn't be able to provide for my family in the way that I would plan on providing for them. If something were to happen, Like there needed to be an alternative way to make sure that my family is going to be cared for. Angela, I wanted to provide for her. And, in the future, if we're blessed with kids, we have to make sure that they're going to be provided for. And I agree. I think that being able to invest your money, whether that be in the stock market, whether that be in cryptocurrency, whether that be in real estate, regardless of what it is, it's a really important thing to do. What about time flexibility? I know that you had also mentioned we're here for time freedom. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that?
Oh, absolutely. Traditionally, just like what you were saying, if you want to make more money, you have to trade more time. So you have to pick up that extra shift, or you have to stay overtime, or you have to get a second job. Taking your money and instead of purchasing liabilities to purchase assets, that's one way that you can kind of generate some more income for yourself or your family. The problem is if someone is interested in real estate, they are immediately turned off by the fact that they have to be active, or I don't want to be a landlord and I don't want to deal with tenants and toilets and termites and all of the paperwork that has to go with buying another property and leasing up a unit. What people don't know is that you can invest in real estate passively. There are people who love this stuff, who do this professionally at hundreds of units at a time, and you can invest in their deal, help get the deal through the finish line, and enjoy all of the benefits of real estate investing. So appreciation, cash flow, income difference with your taxes, or principal pay down. You can experience all of those benefits without having to deal with tenants and toilets in the middle of the night. And that's why we're here, to help people learn this.
And also, it's funny because, when you think about real estate investing, just because of everything you see on HGTV, like the first thing that comes to mind is like flipping houses, right? Like, all right, you're going to become a real estate investor and I'm going to flip houses. And then the realization sets in, like the moment you stop flipping houses is the moment you stop making any money, right? And like, ultimately, what many people come to realize is they just created a second job for themselves because
it's a very difficult job
and a very risky job because there are so many factors that play into what can affect your profit margin. And so, yeah, that's something that can.
I'm so sorry.
Go for it.
I was just going to say, people need to start thinking about ways to take their time out of the equation. And how can you send your money off like little soldiers and have them bring back more little soldiers with them instead of you being out there chugging along?
That's right. We need an army of little soldiers.
Yes. That's right.
Oh, gosh. So, okay. So one thing that unites us is apartment buildings. We all invest in apartment buildings, but there is another thing that we also invest in, and that is senior housing. Angela, who has been in the senior housing space now for the past 6 years or so, talk to us a little bit about why we decided to also go into senior housing.
Just wanted to share some statistics with you all. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, by 2030, the year 2030, all baby boomers will be the age of 65 years or older. When you put that into perspective, that's 10,000 older adults who turn 65 years a day. And as these baby boomers age into their 70s and 80s and 90s, because we're all, they're all living longer, the senior housing demand will only increase. And, working in senior living, I've seen a lot of big box communities pop up, senior living communities. When I say big box, that's at least, 30 units in a senior living community. And I've seen a lot of them pop up. But what I've also noticed is that there's a lot of movement amongst the residents that are living there. They're moving to somewhere that's a little bit more homey, or they feel a little bit more inclusive. These bigger boxing communities have been just so busy.
If you are not able to provide these residents with the attention to care and just the attention that they specifically need, oftentimes not only will they notice, but the family members are also going to notice. It's going to have this emotional effect on them. It's going to have this physical and effect on their mental and overall well-being. And what we want to do is really disrupt the industry and the way people approach senior housing, right? It doesn't have to be a big box. And you guys had come with us to that conference. April, talk to us a little bit about that.
What Angela was saying, how people were moving away from these big box senior living, I think it's because one of us or all of us who are listening have had an interaction with someone who has placed their grandma or their mom into a facility, or their dad or their grandpa. And if you don't know it personally, you know someone who has done it. And you've heard stories of people who have fallen because there was no one there to help them, or people who have bed sores because they weren't being moved around or they weren't being cared for. And I'm not saying that these big box facilities are evil and they're just out to make a buck, but it is built in a way as it is not providing adequate care for our seniors. And if we can provide a housing product that is less nurse to patient ratios, one caregiver for 10 patients instead of one caregiver for 30 patients, it can really make a difference in the well-being of our seniors' lives.
And especially in an environment that actually feels like home and not in this institution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And it's funny because when it comes to investing in senior housing, we had that quote that was presented to us. It was like, whether you invest in senior housing or not, one way or another, I'm probably going to butcher this, whether you invest in senior housing or not, one way or another, you're going to be involved in senior housing.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. You hit it right on the head, Kris.
Good. It took a while to reach out there, but I had to reach deep to find that one. Don't worry.
And it's interesting that the baby boomers are just going to be done turning 65 by 2030. And so the average age that people enter senior living is like in mid 70s, close to 80s. And so we're right at the beginning of this silver tsunami, as Jean Guarino would say.
Yes.
And you want to be able to provide a product that is going to be doing good in the community and not having people suffer.
And so when it comes to acquiring both apartment buildings and senior living, Julian, you play a huge role in that. Can you kind of just give our audience a high-level overview of what's involved with that type of stuff? Like, how does one purchase an apartment building? How does one purchase a senior living community?
Right. So, it first starts off with analyzing the property. And it's really much the same as if you were to analyze a small residential property. You take your income, less your expenses, and that's your profit. And same thing with these larger ones. Although it can be very time consuming, just learning how to navigate and familiarizing yourself with the model is pretty much a task in and of itself. So while the process can take hours for one commercial property, just imagine how many single family homes or 3-unit buildings you'll need to analyze to generate the same cash flow. So as far as numbers, let's say your goal is $10K a month of passive income. At $200 a door, you would need 50 doors total. So that's quite a few triplexes, or that's just one apartment complex. What would you rather have?
Right. And then on top of that too, since it's all in one space, you can really benefit from the economies of scale. You have the income, you have enough meat in the bone on these 50 door, 100 door plus 200 door plus properties that you can support in-house property management. You can support in-house maintenance. And ultimately that'll really give you the opportunity to provide a really good living environment for the residents that are there. Julian, I know that you were talking about the time it takes to underwrite this large multifamily deal. I can't imagine how long it would possibly take to underwrite 50 or 100 single family homes. That would just drive me nuts.
Right. You got to do the due diligence on each one and sourcing the location and all of that. It's definitely a lot, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And part of that, right? Because we're here in Chicago. And for those who don't know the market here in Chicago, 40% of the housing stock here in Chicago is 2 to 4 unit properties. And so it's very easy to get caught in the idea that in order for me to scale, I'm just going to have to get a bunch of 2 to 4 unit properties. That's what's considered an apartment here in my mind. And then you go to a place like Texas, and Texas, everyone there is I'm just going to get a 100 unit property just because that's what everyone here is doing. I'm not going to deal with those small 20 unit properties. Whereas over here in Chicago, it's 20 unit property is considered a bigger deal, right? And so a lot of that has to deal with a mindset shift. And I think we can kind of speak for all of us that a mindset shift is something that we've gone through and is something that we're constantly going through as we continue to grow both in our business and in our personal lives. When it comes to mindset, right? That's something that is ingrained into people's minds, oftentimes further from that, whether that be from their experiences or it's from their upbringing. Mm-hmm. And, we come from backgrounds where our parents really came from an environment of scarcity. And we talk about all the time, like, there's a scarcity mindset and there's an abundance mindset. We were really working at transitioning from that scarcity mindset to that abundance mindset. But like, why do you think so many people are part of this scarcity mindset to begin with? And as we said, our parents were coming from this environment of scarcity. Is that kind of the experience that you guys have had as well? Like, you've been ingrained in that from the very beginning?
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I can't fault my parents. They're honestly just doing kind of what they've learned from their parents, right? So
right.
Absolutely. They want you to succeed. They want you to have a good job, and they want you to work, and they want to not worry about you. And so that makes you fearful of taking risks, and it makes you fearful of investments or going into the unknown. Why do you think there's a lot of Filipinos who are nurses? Because it is a safe and it is a stable job. It is not risky, rather than being something a little bit more creative. And so being able to shift that with listening to podcasts, being able to reframe your mind of how you can view failure. Parents want you to succeed. And that was something that I had to overcome, and I'm still working on, is taking your failures and not viewing it as a failure, but viewing it as something that you can learn from and take that experience and make it into something positive. If I was scared to get into real estate because I was afraid that I would fail at it, but is it really failing if you're learning and if you can do better every single time?
I love that. And you know what? People talk too much about failure as a bad thing, right? And I think that goes hand in hand with the fact, like, we've gone through formal education for so many years. When they teach you in school from the very beginning, if you get an F, that is failure, and that is the worst possible thing that can ever happen to you.
Or B. B was bad for my household.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. B. Yeah, you get a B. B is bad. B is bad. Right. But like, for real, like if you fail, it's bad. And the reality of it is, failure is the biggest teacher. It is not books.
Absolutely.
It's not podcasts. It's not like mentorship. Like, if you want a mentor, go out and do something and fail at it. That'll teach you so much more than like anything else. That's something that's consistent with so many of these successful entrepreneurs, right? Is that they fail and they embrace failure. And, I think that's something that we've really grown to realize over the years.
Absolutely. It's just so valuable to reframe your mind and just take life as it is and don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, you really just have to have the confidence, not in that every single possible thing that can go wrong, but the confidence in yourself, knowing that regardless of what goes wrong, you feel confident that you're going to get through it.
Oh, that's really
Me
good.
and Angela live by a quote.
Yes.
That it goes, you don't know what you don't know. And it's, you really don't. And until you do something, you're going to uncover these things that you can't find in a book, that you can't find on a podcast.
Yeah, there's no way. At some point, you just got to take action, just learn it. And we tell that to all of the people that attend our meetup every single month, so many times. All right, guys. So, we're coming towards the end of today's show, but really before we finish, it's time for the Freedom 5. So these are 5 questions that we ask every guest on our show. And it starts with the most important question. And that is, what is your why? What do you think is the underlying motivation behind everything it is that you do? Let's start with Angela.
Why comes from being able to have that time freedom to do the things that I want to do, to travel more, to spend more time with my family and be there for our future kids, and also be able to have time to travel and maybe go on medical mission trips to give back to the community. Ultimately, for, Kris and I, it's to live a happy life, surrounded by the people I care and love.
What about Julian and April? What is the why for you guys?
Julian, you want to go first?
Yeah, it's absolutely the same thing as Angela's. I think that's why we're great partners.
I think to expand on what Angela said, it is the exact same thing. No, no, okay, let's.
No, we're keeping that one. Yeah, it really is. Growing up, I think one of the things that I've really grown to appreciate, and I say this like putting it simply, like why we do this is to be home every night for dinner. That's such a simple sentence to understand. But the reality is, for so many people, as we grow older, you get exposed to so many of these busy professionals that's not a guarantee for so many people. And I think back in my life personally about like how many times I've experienced personal growth and personal development. And it happened sitting at the dinner table, having conversations with my family. And if you have the opportunity to be that for your children, or us be that for our children every single night, and just be home for dinner and have those conversations, how much more of a mindset can you develop for your children? How much more of an influence can you have on what it is that they do, the way they see things, their life perspective, lessons that you've learned and can pass down to them? Like, that's so important, and that can only come with having control over your time.
Oh, Kris, that was really that sentence right there. I just want to be home for dinner. It so powerful.
Yeah. And case in point, I work in the operating room, and there was a surgeon that we were working with last week whose wife, it was her birthday that day. And, we were doing surgeries, and over the course of the day, he was like, all right, guys, let's get these surgeries over with. I want to make sure I'm home so we can take my wife out for dinner. And over the course of the day, we kept getting these add-on cases and emergency cases that ended up dropping onto his plate. And it sucked because you can really see just like the life getting sucked out of him over the course of the day, because he quickly began to realize that he's not going to be able to go home for dinner and not going to be able to take his wife out for that dinner as he had initially planned. Who knows how many times that happens in his life. And, really, it's just a motivating factor, because we don't want that to ever happen to me.
I think it's so interesting because when people think, I can't be home for dinner, you don't think of a surgeon having that problem. But everyone, blue collar workers, white collar workers, the most influential people, doctors, life-saving doctors, they can't come home for dinner because they're trading their time for their money. Time freedom is just so important. And it's something that we don't think about. It's not taught. People, your jobs don't want you to think about time freedom. They want you to think you got to work.
Right.
And so that's why we're here.
Right, absolutely. And that's really the purpose of why we decided to tackle the concept of time freedoms, because there's so many things out there, social media, mainstream media, that focuses on financial freedom, but that goes in hand with all of these videos of like Lamborghinis and like going on these extravagant vacations and like these huge mansions. When, as over the years, we've been talking with people that, have been investing with us, most often than not, what they really want is to just be able to take an extra day off of work, or take that vacation they've always wanted, or just like be home with their kids one more day a week. And those are the people who really understand that it's not things, but really it's time. It's time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the second question we have here is, what book has had the largest influence in your life? April, you want to start us off with that one?
Okay, so I'm going to say a book, and then I'm going to say a quote. The first one is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. So the quote from that book that I love is, if you are not in the process of becoming the person you want to be, you are automatically engaged in becoming the person that you don't want to be. So it makes you very intentional with your actions every day. And then Atomic Habits by James Clear. Goals. The quote is, goals are about the result you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead you to those results.
Absolutely. Business is all about systems and processes, and that's something that we've learned over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's something
Still
we've
learning.
learned. Still learning. Angela, what about you?
I have to agree with April. Atomic Habits was a really good book that I really enjoyed as well. But another one is the infamous Purple Bible that a lot of everyone should know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's really resonated with me just because it's allowed me to have that mind shift change to be able to work smarter, not work harder, in order to be financially independent. In order to do that, you have to take risks, get out of your comfort zone, and also find ways to make money work for you.
Absolutely. Julian, how about you? What's your favorite book?
Man, there's so many, but I would say E-Myth by Michael Gerber. So if your business depends on you, you don't own a business, you have a job. I mean, that is just huge. I mean, especially me with my mechanical background, like getting out of that technical mindset or manager mindset, and you just need to go to that entrepreneurial mindset.
Right, right. And you know what? That actually goes hand in hand with my favorite book. And first and foremost, I wish I could say all of the books. I would say all the books that have been mentioned so far have been my favorite books. But because I can't repeat the same book, I'm going to say Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. That kind of goes hand in hand with what you're saying, Julian, right? Because it's like, it's very easy to say, well, if all of these things I need to do in order to succeed, I have to do every single one of these. And me too, I'm kind of like a very hands-on kind of guy. So it's like, all right, well, if I got to fix this thing over at the apartment, like I'm going to go over there and fix it. Or if I need to get this task done, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And what you realize is that like you're not doing what your strengths are. And you can be very much more effective in your actions, very much effective in results if you choose to leverage out the expertise of others so that way they can do things often better than you probably could do in the first place. Number 3, what is the most impactful thing, whether it's a piece of technology, a habit, or a person that has helped in freeing up your time? Julian, let's start with you.
All right, I'm going to reference another book here. It's called The One Thing by Gary Keller, I believe.
Yes.
So what's the quote? What's the one thing you could do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? So I think about that every morning that I wake up. It's just a habit and trying to focus on that. That way, everything is just kind of unnecessary afterwards, right?
I would say my most impactful thing is a piece of technology, and that is the Google Calendar on my phone. It's funny because Angela knows this. Like we show our, it's like, oh, let's plan something to hang out next time. And it's like I open up my Google Calendar, and people just freak out. They like look at my calendar like, holy cow, Kris, I can't look at that. That just gives me way too much anxiety. And the reality is, it's like I have 4 different emails that are synced to that Google Calendar. But because of that, I'm able to really decipher like, all right, when I'm looking at this, I know it relates to my job. When I look at this, I know it relates to our business. I look at this, it relates to leisure and activities. And on top of that, it really just helped me stay on track with like what it is that I need to do. And I found by keeping that level of organization, the results have come just because of sheer organization and being able to know exactly what it is that I need to do that day. Mm-hmm. What about you, Angela? Do you feel the same way?
Same exact way. I started off with more just writing down lists and then switched over to organizational planners. And then, you and I combined forces and now we're doing Google Calendar that is all coordinated. So we know whose birthday is next week, what event we have, and then what real estate events we have. So, yeah, that's been good for us, Google Calendar.
It's great. Yeah, like we don't even have to ask each other like, oh, are we doing something next Saturday? Because both of us are looking at the same thing and referencing the same thing. So if she wants to schedule something like, well, he's available, so we're scheduling it. and I don't have an excuse.
I know you're free, Kris.
Right.
And so, Angela, does your calendar look like a rainbow like Kris's? Oh my gosh.
Man. All right, April, what about you? Do you have something different that you like to have as like your most impactful piece of technology thing or person?
So I'm going to say ClickUp. ClickUp is a project management software, and it is something that is not quite perfect yet. So we're building our systems inside of ClickUp to systematize and help everything become streamlined. And it's going to go through several iterations before it's completely perfect, or it probably will never be perfect. But it really helps me organize things. I put my personal stuff in there. I put our business stuff in there. We're all on there. We can see who's working on what needs to get done when. I love it. And I know if it hasn't already been super impactful, it's going to be helping us release a lot of that bandwidth that we carry around with us every day.
Yeah, I got to tell you, like ever since we got on board with ClickUp, my level of mental bandwidth has freed up so much. Literally at the beginning of the day, if I'm going to be working on something with the business, like I don't have to try and take inventory of like the different tasks that need to be done. Mm-hmm. All I have to do is just open up that ClickUp. And for those of you guys who don't know ClickUp is a project management software that's similar to like Trello, Basecamp, Asana, Monday. There's a bunch of different programs that are out there, and ClickUp just happens to be the one that we're using, but it is fantastic and has been a game changer in the way we execute our business.
And there's no right or wrong project management software that you can use. I think Julian heard it from somewhere, but I'm going to repeat the quote that he repeated to me. And it was, the best project management software is the one that you will actually use. So as long as you're using it, it's helping you.
Absolutely. All right. So moving on to number 4, what is the number one piece of advice you would give to anyone looking to achieve more control over their time? All right, April, let's start with you.
So I'm going to build off of the ClickUp. So within ClickUp, you can time block. So you can assign tasks to certain hours of your day and really just release that bandwidth and just, exactly what you're going to do at this hour and then the next hour and then the next hour. I know it seems very counterintuitive where how can you get more? How am I getting more time freedom if I'm controlling every hour of my day? But it's because that you're able to dedicate your time purposefully towards achieving your goals, which will allow you to have more time freedom rather than mindlessly scrolling on Instagram and for the fresh new post or that funny new cat video. You're actually achieving something. You're accomplishing something. And in the end, that's going to give you more time freedom.
Literally, if you don't know what you're doing, I find that often myself sometimes too. It's like if I don't know what I'm going to do, before you know it, somehow, some way, like some form of social media just ends up on my phone. And before you know it, an hour and a half passes by and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just wasted a crucial hour and a half of my day. It's just like the worst feeling ever.
On my phone, it will alert me every 15 minutes that I am on social media. It'll say, you've been on here for 15 minutes. And then you can either ignore or you can close the app. And it's, it makes you very mindful of the time that you're spending.
That's great. After this call, we need to get that. Yeah, we need to get on that.
Well, Kris.
And it's built into Apple. So it's not something you have to buy.
Did you have an app, Kris, that just completely blocks your like Spotify and stuff?
Yes. It's funny. It's called the Freedom app.
How fitting.
Wow. How fitting. Right. Yeah. No, it's called the Freedom app. The problem is I just got to remember to turn it on. But what it does, for those of you who are also having trouble focusing like we are, if you download the Freedom app, sign up to that account. We have no relation to this at all. But if you download it and you sign up to it, what it allows you to do is it gets access to your phone and your computer, and it literally blocks you from going on certain websites. It blocks you from opening up certain programs or apps. And it really forces you to stay on track with what it is that you're doing. And it's powerful. I think once you turn it on, regardless of what it is that you need to do, you are stuck for that period of time that you are quote unquote free. And it's funny because you try going to let's say you try going to a shopping website when you're supposed to be writing an essay. It takes you to this website that says, congratulations, you are free.
Wow.
You cannot even go there at all. It's really interesting. But it works.
It does
Whatever
work.
works.
Yeah. All right. So what about you, Julian? I guess what's one piece of advice you would give to anyone looking to achieve more control over their time?
Just systematize. If it's a redundant, repetitive task, you can totally systematize it. And then you could just go on to something that is worth more of your time.
Yes, indeed. If you have the capability of systematizing things, again, it takes away that mental bandwidth and allows you to be really efficient with your actions. Angela, what has worked for you?
Along with time blocking and systematizing, having a routine. I've started my day with meditation, and I feel like that has cleared my mind to start on a good foot and really just get the whole routine ready and be able to be efficient in my day.
Yeah.
So that it gets me closer to having more control over my time.
For myself, found that, taking inventory of the tasks that need to be accomplished and prioritizing the one task that would be most impactful for that day. It goes hand in hand with what Julian was mentioning with the one thing, right? If I have X amount of hours in that day, there's only so much I can do. I can't do everything, but what would be the most impactful task that would generate the highest return on my time if I were to complete it that day? And that's really been a big game changer for me. All right. So the fifth and final question we're going to be asking people is what is the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you? For us, if you want to reach any member of our team, you can go to www.freedominvesting.com and schedule an introductory call with us. We'd love to get to know who you are, what your investment goals are, and how we can potentially help you achieving those goals. We also have a free 7-day course on how to passively invest and what passively investing is. Make sure to sign up to that, as well as our Freedom Insights newsletter that we release once a month that gives you an update on the projects and the things that we have going on. If you're interested in actively investing, we also hold a monthly real estate networking event here in Chicago that live streams virtually online, and that's called Windy City REI. If you're interested in joining that, make sure to check that out. You can check out our group on Facebook, Windy City REI, or check us out on Meetup. All right, guys. Well, that's a ton of great information today. We talked about why investing your hard-earned money is so important, the importance of mindset and how you should shift towards a mindset of abundance, the importance of time freedom and why we chose real estate as our vehicle to achieve that, as well as a really high overview of what it takes to acquire these deals. Guys, I just want to thank you all for not only being fantastic guests, our very first guests, but also our amazing partners, and we look forward to remaining in touch. Now, if you like this show and want to learn more about how we can help you free up your time through passive real estate investments, check out www.freedominvesting.com. Make sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter and schedule an introductory call with our team. We also have a free 7-day course on what passive real estate investing is and how to get started so that you can start your journey towards earning back more time in your life. To all of our amazing listeners here on the Freedom Investing Podcast, my name is Kris Toribio. Till next time.